Welcome back, everyone, to the next episode of Across the Opti-Verse. Today, we're chatting with Tsepo, who's our guest today, and really, we're going to be talking about a wide variety of different topics, but seriously, focus on the journey from engineering to data science to PropTech to finance and forecasting, and how we can connect this like realm of business intelligence, really, into kind of the professional career of someone just out of as a graduate out of university. I'm not going to introduce Tsepo more. I'm going to let him introduce himself. But it's a really cool episode. I hope you enjoy it. And Tsepo, I'll hand it over to you. Maybe you can introduce yourself.
Thank you, Dean. Hi to the viewers. My name is Tsepo Phohleli. I'm a senior consultant at Optimum Solutions. And above everything, I think I'm just a data practitioner. And yeah, that's me.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. Well, let's get into it. Okay, Tsepo, I mean, I've known you since you joined Optimum. Tsepo and I have actually run races together. We've done projects together. We've had to deal with some very complicated proposals together. So we've really I've seen a lot of Tsepo's journey, and over the past year, obviously, been a bit detached from it. But before we get into, what's been happening, let's go back to the start. You started off as an engineer, correct?
Yeah.
Kind of what's that transition been like from engineering into the software engineering data science practitioner role?
Yeah. Funny enough, engineering was like my second option. I actually did want to sort of study mathematical statistics, which I think is closer to like data science than engineering is. But I think at the time, I thought that it was a bit more restrictive, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I think engineering was sort of like a more natural option that would give me options in the future. And I think transitioning from engineering to sort of like the data science, advanced business analytics space has been met with its own challenges. But I think more than anything, engineering equipped me with sort of like structured thinking, which has sort of like carried me in this new space that I find myself in.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, brilliant. Actually, maybe I am biased. I like to think that engineering kind of teaches you, as you say, that problem solving skill.
It does.
Yeah, that's very cool. So maybe at what point in your journey, obviously you said you wanted to start off in mathematics and statistical analysis, went into engineering. What point in your professional journey did you kind of start leaning more into the data science, the business intelligence?
Yeah, I think it was very early on in my career, where I saw the value of decision making. And I think that intrigued me more than the actual mechanics of sort of like getting to the decision of working on data. And I think, yeah, that's what drew me into sort of like the data space, how to sort of like go from unstructured data into business insight. And yeah, ever since then, I think I've been hooked.
Oh, amazing. Maybe a nice kind of point. You obviously worked on lots of projects across multiple industries. I can't even begin to name them. Was there any specific project or challenge where you were like, yeah, this is it?
Not per se, hey. I think for me, it was the continuous challenge in sort of like how I thought or how I saw things that kept me going. Yeah, that the challenge in my ways of thinking, I think was it for me.
Oh, cool. I like it. I mean, I know from kind of our history that PropTech was a space that you've really shown a passion in. That's kind of where data science, although kind of advanced technologies, meets the property industry. Kind of what ignited the passion in PropTech specifically?
PropTech is a bit of a a long journey one.
Yeah.
So I think I've always been drawn to sort of like the physical asset itself, the property for what it, I guess, represented, a home for others, a safe space, all of that, personal expression. So I think it started there from when I was young, sort of like an appreciation for buildings, property, design. And I think moving on into sort of like this data space, and sort of like early projects within the property space that I worked on, I started to see very vast inefficiencies within the property space, and I think that sort of ignited sort of like a passion to solve, or at least to attempt to solve some of those issues.
And do you think these kind of this data transformation, like digital first PropTech space, do you think there are specific opportunities in South Africa that we aren't touching?
Yes, I think much of sort of like the South African property market is still very inefficient, slow moving, non-transparent. There's a whole lot of sort of like issues that still exist within at least the South African market that I think that technology and data could address.
Yeah, it's probably in the right space now to, bite the bullet, adopt it, and see what happens.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I really like that kind of thought process. Obviously, a lot of it always relates back at the end of the day, prop tech, retail, telecoms, and so on. It all relates to revenue, forecasting, financial kind of modeling. I know you have experience in the financial space. Working in that kind of mindset of how do we generate revenue, how do we protect revenue, how has that kind of shaped you, and what lessons have you learned from that?
Yeah, I think as you pointed out, sort of like those areas are essentially, I guess, where most of the decisions come from. Okay, like what are our revenue targets? What are we trying to do? All of that, and I think it's shaped me to sort of like ask different questions to what most I guess practitioners ask. I think that questions are probably more technically focused, whereas I think I always come into a problem with a more business decision minded approach, and I think it's probably shaped me in that direction to ask questions differently, or to at least see the problem differently.
It's like this common problem of speaking to business person versus technical person. The
Correct.
questions could be the exact same question, but you have to think about how you phrase it.
Correct.
That maybe relates to something I've seen you do. I know you're really strong at is the client engagement portion of anything.
Yeah.
How do you've said you've got to obviously think about the question. How's your experience been in terms of client engagement with some of the work you've done?
I think for me, client engagement came maybe a bit naturally, but I think I've also, not to say that it was easy, but it was a bit more natural. And I think I've also had to sort of like work on it in the past, but I think I've been fortunate enough in that the circles or the clients that I've worked in have sort of like given me a platform to like voice my opinion. I think as a sort of like someone coming up or as junior starting, when you're given that platform, I think you become a bit more comfortable, and you become yourself, and you're able to ask questions, and you realize that okay, these people actually value my contribution. So I think I'd say that's how it's sort of like shaped.
Yeah, it's about trust building essentially, and you can only build it from engaging.
Yeah.
I think that goes naturally into this client engagement side. That you've recently actually done a webinar on something called the DIGNAD model. It's about forecasting natural disasters. How has that experience, that exposure been?
Yeah, so that was something that was sort of like out of my comfort zone. Hinging on sort of like economics. So yeah, and some finance. But I think lately I've been sort of like interested in the finance space. So I think for me, I saw it as an opportunity to sort of like go a bit outside of my comfort zone, see what sort of like finance, what more I can learn within the finance space and the sort of like economic space. But yeah, that's how essentially I ended up presenting on the webinar. It was through my interest in finance and sort of like modeling, but as well as my experience in sort of like advanced business analytics, predictive methodologies, and all of that.
And maybe in a quick high level summary, what is the DIGNAD model specifically?
DIGNAD is sort of like it's a dynamic general equilibrium model. It helps policymakers forecast the macroeconomic impact of natural disasters, as well as sort of simulate different policy situations, and yeah, to understand the sort of the impact of resilient infrastructure. That's essentially the goal of the model.
I think I watched the webinar, and there kind of one major thing. It's like a bigger lesson beyond the numbers. Essentially, is what more can we do to be prepared? And I don't think that relates specifically to policymakers in kind of handling natural disasters. I think that's everywhere. How do you approach that mindset of what more can we do in your planning, in your project work, and in what you do?
Yeah, I think to me, what forecasting about is not about predicting the right outcome. I think it's about preparing yourself for potential outcomes. So I think that's what forecasting is essentially about. It's not about predicting. So I'll use a very weird analogy, but it's not about predicting the storms that will come, but it's about building the type of ship that will withstand any storm that comes. And that is not essentially, it's just about being prepared for tomorrow.
It's essentially predicting the unknown and making sure that whenever the unknown strikes, you are ready.
Correct.
I like that. You also spoke in the webinar, another thing that kind of also always comes, I see it on a day-to-day basis. I also see it when I'm trying out a new tool, is this need for or power of low-code processes, low-code tools. Why do you think something like that is so valuable for anyone using this adapting field?
Low code is important because I think it simplifies the path to getting to a decision, and I think it acts as a bridge for decision makers to get closer to sort of like the data itself. But I think what it also does is it acts as a sort of like what do you call it, a medium for technical people to arrive at a decision quicker. It sort of democratizes data insight. If I could put it that way. So you get to the to the insight quicker without investing too much time.
It stops that decision paralysis.
Correct.
Essentially. There's always this notion that you have momentum, and let's make sure we keep on this so we don't lose momentum. And if you do lose momentum, you get stuck in this decision paralysis. And so,
and I think it just helps you iterate much quicker. And you end up building better solutions because of that.
I think it's this bridge. I think that's important. And now, to take a bigger step back, you've worked in a lot of industries. You've worked with a lot of different personalities and types of clients. What has that experience taught you about the importance of adaptability, particularly I would say in a data you call it data practitioning type of way?
I think exposure to a lot of projects or clients, essentially what it does is it forces you to always be context aware, because you move from one project to another and the context shifts as well. So I think you always have to be open to learning, and so that you're solving for the right problem. Because I think if you're sort of resistant to learning, you risk bringing in sort of like your what do you call it, your biases,
Mm.
say from previous projects
Yeah.
into a newer project. So I think it just allows you to learn quickly and to be open to new information.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Kind of, I think to close off here, there's this quite always this thing comes back to, it's like what, and that's another, what turning point stands out where you're like, I'm actually growing here, I'm learning, I'm adapting, I'm now seeing the fruits of the hard work I put in. Has there anything that like really has made you think that?
I think technically, I think every project has sort of like a moment like that
Mm.
where you're struggling with something and you figure it out
Mm.
and you sort of like recognize the growth in that instance.
Mm.
But I think for me, because I've been so close to sort of like business stakeholders,
Yes.
I think for me, it's always when I realize the impact of maybe a report that I put together, or a dashboard that I put together, or some analytics that we shared,
Mm.
and the actual ramifications of those insights or those analytics.
Mm.
And I think to me that always forces me to sort of like want to grow in my craft.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think I want to close off. I know that's kind of this topic of growth that I keep on harping on. I think I want to just say maybe two questions. The first question is, what is the biggest thing you've learned about growth in your professional career now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'd say that it isn't linear.
Mm.
And I think we have this thing of sort of judging today's growth based on the limitations or the metrics of yesterday's growth.
Mm.
But I think growth is not linear, and I think that's been the biggest lesson
Mm.
is that it looks different for different scenarios or for
Mm.
different situations.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the last question is, what's the next thing? What's the next project? What's the next opportunity you're looking to explore on?
Yeah, so I think lately I've been interested in sort of like risk. So I think risk management, finance
Mm.
is probably something along those lines is probably where um, my career progression will probably look into focus on.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, cool. Tsepo, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. As I've mentioned, Tsepo's webinar, we will link it in the bio. I really would recommend you go watch it. It's really interesting to see how impressive a tool can be used in such kind of large scale environments. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to speak to Tsepo, please reach out to him directly. He's good at a lot of industries and a lot of projects. So I really recommend reaching out to him, having a chat. But as always, we'll see you next month. And thanks very much for joining. Tsepo, thank you. Appreciate it.